interior designer at Revive Interiors. I am based out of Lakefield, Minnesota. Why I chose this career path was because I have always really loved art, creativity. I really like feeding that side of my brain. I've always been like that from a young age. I was always in the 4-H project, and I was enrolled in home environment was my favorite project in 4-H. And so I had kind of a nurtured love of this interior decorating design idea, but I never considered it as a career path. I actually had a careers assessment in high school tell me based on my skills and interests that I should be an interior designer, but I honestly did not think that there was a market around here, and I knew I wanted to stay pretty close to home where I grew up. So I went a different direction, and little did I know where I would be today. But ultimately, the reason that I chose this career was because I just gotten married. This was only about 6-7 years ago. Had just gotten married, and I was pretty miserable in my job because it was not suited for me. I needed variety. I was stuck in a desk job that I just hated. Like, I hated going to work. I knew that there was something else for me out there, and so I knew I wanted to start a business, but I wasn't quite sure what it was yet. And so I explored a couple different options and just landed on this because it's just what I've always really liked to do. And actually started as an interior decorating business, and long story short, that ended up kind of transpiring into more of the design work, which I was frankly scared about before, but I love it now. So I think just for me, it was following that gut feeling, following what people were telling me that they needed, but also just staying true to what I really wanted to do, because I knew I didn't want to be stuck in something, again, that wasn't what I wanted to do. So just kind of following my heart. Honestly, that sounds kind of cliche, but that's what happened. And now what I love about it is I have flexibility. I do work mostly full time, but because I'm self-employed, I can take a day off if I need to be home with my kids, or if I just frankly want a day off. So I love that about it. So I have my own business, and what I love about that is I can basically go wherever I want to with my business. So if I only want to do kitchens and baths, or if I only want to do home organization and closets, like any direction I want to take it, I can do that because I have control of my business. So I really love that every day is different. I love that I get to see people. I'm such a people person that it just fuels me. Like, I just love being around people. So to go from a sit at your desk job all day to something like this, it's just night and day difference, and I am very happy in my job. The educational path that I took was a little non-conventional, and I want to start by saying that I wouldn't suggest this way if you were seriously considering interior design. The reason for that being, so in Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa, most of the surrounding states, you don't have to have a license to be an interior designer. But if they ever change that law, then I would have to go back to school and get my 4-year degree, and also probably follow under a licensed designer for a while. So there's definitely specific things that you have to do to call yourself a licensed interior designer. But you can practice as an interior designer around here with really no education. However, it's kind of a loaded question for me, because the only way that I could do what I do now is to not go to 4-year school. There's no way I would have been able to do that. I had just started a family. There is no 4-year degree school around here. It'd have to be an online thing, and just with schedules, and I had already started my business, and just was not feasible for me to pursue the 4-year degree. Had I, like I said before, with a careers class that told me I should be an interior designer, if I knew what I knew now, I would have gone to full design school, gotten all of my credentials, and then started my business. But when I started as a decorator, I did take a certification class. It probably took me a few months to get through, and it gave me a pretty basic knowledge of just design concepts, some tips to keep me going. And that was really beneficial at the time for my decorating business. But then when I got more into the design and less of the decorating, I kind of felt like, I was learning really quickly on the job. You're learning something new in every project, but I felt like a fish out of water in a lot of projects. And so I thought, even though I could be learning really quickly, and I still do, I'm still very much learning. I've only done this interior design path for, I'd say probably about 4 years. So every day is a learning experience, but I did want to go back and get a 2-year degree. And so I'm about a semester away. That is through Penn Foster. It's a all online school and it is accredited. So if I ever needed to go back and get my 4-year degree or wanted to, I could put these credits toward that. And that's been really helpful for me. I actually really am probably soaking in the information that I'm learning now more that I've had a little time in the field. So I'm kind of building on what I've already learned in my business. So I think it's a little easier to digest the information because you've seen it or you're seeing it every day. But that is definitely one thing that if I was to go back and do it all over again, I would probably do the education first and then start my business after that. So Penn Foster, I mentioned, is it's an online school. The reason I picked that was because it was self-paced. So it's a 2-year program. I started it over 4 years ago and I have a semester left. So it might be another year before I finish, to be honest, but I do like to have that education behind me. Then I will be able to say that I have a 2-year degree, which for some clients may be appealing, but didn't need it. I just kind of chose it for myself. So because I am self-employed and have my own business, it is just me as a full-time, and I do have a design assistant that works with me. She's actually an interior design student. So as far as like moving up in my company, that is kind of a hard question to answer. But I will say that since I started my design business and shed the decorating image that I had for a while, I would say moving up in the company for me has been just getting different types of projects. So like maybe bigger projects or a little higher end projects. At the beginning, I was taking on anything that came my way because I was just so happy to have the experience and I needed the experience. I needed the smallest of jobs to learn the most basic skills in this field because I didn't have the education, like the schooling education. And so it took a while, but then kind of once I built my portfolio and people were seeing my work, that kind of showed people what I was capable of. And now I'm very careful to market only what I want to be bringing in. So let's say I wanted to focus more on kitchens and baths, or if I only wanted to do that, then I would only be sharing those projects on like my social media, as opposed to, I do actually quite a few projects that I never share anything about, but they're the types of projects that I maybe don't necessarily want to have more of. Not that I don't enjoy those projects, but the way that I market is trying to capture those types of projects that I really want to have. So as my business has changed, as my skills have developed, and just as I kind of get a feel for what I really love to do and want to do more of, I would say for me, that's moving up and just kind of building the business to be what I want it to be. The average salary for an interior designer is going to vary pretty greatly depending on your education, your experience, and your location would be a really big dictator of that. So a Southwest Minnesota designer like myself is not going to make nearly as much money if I was a high-end designer in the cities or New York or a big metro area. But I will say that there is so much opportunity out there online, not even necessarily online, but I feel like these days, whatever you want to do, if you have like a niche you want to focus on, if you market yourself well, you should be able to make however much money you want to if you do it right. So I'm just going to give you examples in my business. I used to only charge by the hour. So if I wasn't on a client project, then I wasn't making money. But then I also realized that there was a lot of money that I was missing out on by getting discounts. So like a lot of vendors I work with provide me with a discount, and I can either take all of that discount myself or I can give it to the client. So what I do is I split it in half. So the client gets an item for less than what they could purchase for, but then I also make some money on that product. So with interior design, you're constantly recommending products. So most products that I recommend, I am making something when we go to order it. So that's an area that I have seen is a really good opportunity to make more. And then there's also other areas that I want to be doing more of. So I think just to kind of diversify how I can make money. So it's not always just my time, but maybe like creating a package online where I create it one time and then market it, and then I could just keep bringing in the money as people download it or subscribe to it or whatever it is. So there's just such a huge space online for opportunity that I feel like really you can make as much money as you want to in interior design, even living in Southwest Minnesota. A typical day for me is pretty different from day to day, which is one of the things that I love about this job. So I will say that a lot of my days are at a computer, which I know I said I hated before, but I think the type of work that I'm doing on the computer is just so creative that I really don't mind sitting and designing all day at a computer. But I do need to get out and about too. So some days, and I'll try to kind of group my things together. So I'll have like a full computer day one day, and then the next day I will make that a client meeting day. So maybe I'm meeting with a new client to take measurements, pictures of their space, and go over what their goals are for the space. And then maybe later on in the day, I'm checking in on a current project or delivering product, maybe installing window treatments, just to keep the projects going whatever phase they're in. So for me, all of my projects are going to be in different phases, depending on the size of the project. Like you're going to have some that you just started, some of them that are just wrapping up, and anywhere in between. So that means just a lot of variety, and every project is so different too. So like for one kitchen project, I might make 5 or 6 trips over the course of the project to that client's house. Another project could be 10 visits, depending on how much that client needs from me. So I would say, if I were just to guess, maybe like 75% of the time, I'm actually at my computer designing, and I do actually a lot of virtual screen presentations similar to this, where I have my screen and I'm recording it, and then I have like my little video next to me where I'm walking through a client. So a lot of designers will do that in person, but I have found that to make me more efficient, and because I do live about 30 miles from a lot of my clients, it is easier just to do it on a screen and then send it to them, and then eventually you're going to meet and go over the colors and materials and that. Other things that I do on a pretty regular basis would be going to vendor showrooms and picking out materials, though I'm going to actually I'm in my office here in Lakefield. I have quite a collection of samples here too, where, there's none that way. There's a lot of tile and countertops and that kind of thing where a client can come in here and meet with me. So again, a lot of variety, but that's something too that I have just kind of tried to figure out what works for me, what works for my clients, what makes me the most efficient, and I can actually control. Like if I don't want to sit at my computer today, I can go out and meet with a client. So I love that. Skills and qualifications for an interior designer will vary quite a bit. So I did touch on this a little bit with the education. So I would say just kind of do some research on which state, it's all state governed. So Minnesota is going to have different laws than Texas. And so again, I would just suggest getting that 4-year education that's probably going to back you in a lot of states, and then you're covered. But yeah, each state is different. So qualifications, certifications, and that kind of thing will vary. Skills, though, that is one thing that probably varies quite a bit more than you might think in the interior design world. So, I think when we watch HGTV, we have this like really sugar-coated view of an interior designer because you only see such a small snapshot of a project. So what you're seeing on there is picking out the products, meeting with the client and talking about what they want, and installation and that kind of thing. But I would say there is a ton of left brain activities in this right brain career. So things like calculating the amount of tile you're going to have to order for a wall, or maybe you're figuring an angle for a staircase, or invoicing clients, pricing things for clients, communicating with vendors on pricing, availability, a lot of that kind of stuff. So all of those things require a lot of detail orientation. It requires a lot of self-starting. So especially, I'm kind of coming at this at an angle of being self-employed. So I'm doing a lot of it myself. So if I were to grow my team, some of that stuff I could pass off to a team member, but it still requires a lot of those very, just like the left brain activities. So I actually happen to love math. I'm very creative by nature, but I also really like that structured, predictable thing that math is, right? So there's a lot of that in interior design, probably more than you might realize. It took me a while to realize, like, wow, I really work my whole brain when I'm working on a project, but I really like that. It goes with the variety. Another thing that would be a really good skill to have would be just the ability to pivot a lot. So, you might have one project going and you have a really awesome design planned, and then a contractor rips open the wall and be like, you can't do that because whatever. So being able to move in a different direction quickly, sometimes those things require like, today, we need to make this decision today. So I wouldn't say the types of projects that I take on wouldn't be like super high stress, like I never know when my phone's gonna ring. It's not like that for me, but there definitely are some phone calls that I get where it's like, I gotta know like right now. So I might have to pop over and make a visit and make a quick decision with the client. So for me, it's been building my confidence, and that takes time too in the field. But being confident and shedding that people pleasing tendency a little bit has been working in my favor, because a client is hiring us to tell us what we think would be best for their space, depending on how they want to use it. So for me, I think like being able to be confident enough in myself to tell them what I think, not being afraid to tell them a different idea if I think mine is maybe a little bit better for the space, doing it in a very respectful way. This is a very, very people-centered business. So you have to have really good communication, interpersonal skills. There's so many details that have to get worked out in a project that if you don't have that communication, it's going to be a disaster. So people skills, organization, math skills, patience, flexibility, and probably a little bit of ability to work under pressure would be a lot of the skills that would come to mind that I would say an interior designer should have. The best part about this job, in my opinion, is all the people that I get to work with every day. So I'm constantly working with clients, vendors, contractors, a lot of different people, building relationships over time. I'm being invited into people's homes, which is like the most intimate place that someone could invite you to. And I'm helping to solve a problem. And to see the happiness and joy of a client who just got a room redone in their house is pretty awesome to experience. Just the level of satisfaction and that feeling that they belong in their space. I love that about this job. It's really rewarding for me. It's also really fun to work with different kinds of people. So you see all sorts of different personalities. You're working with singles, couples, couples that get along, couples that don't. So that adds a complexity and extra challenge to an already challenging job. So if you're wired like me, you love people, you have a creative brain, you like a challenge, and you like to learn, that'd be another thing too. This could be a really good career path for you. If you have any questions about this career, you can feel free to reach out to me. My email address is Katie, Katie, at revivebydesign.com. And you can also check my website out, revivebydesign.com, and just kind of see what types of projects that I've done. And you could also take a peek at like my marketing. I mentioned that before, things that I try to focus on. And if you're curious or want to know more, just feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help. Thanks.